Hi, today we are looking at one more very interesting topic, the president and the vice president. The president is the head of the state. He's the supreme commander of the defense forces of India. So let us look at certain key elements about our president. Let's start. Our president is the constitutional head. He is the executive power of the Indian Union, constitutional head of the government of India. He holds a ceremonial position in our Indian politics or Indian polity, and he is the nominal head. Now, what are the reasons for these different names given to our president? First and foremost, all the powers can only be carried out on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. In our constitution, by the 42nd Amendment Act, it is compulsory that the president carries out all his functions in accordance or on the guidelines of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The next reason is the emergencies. Now, we have already looked at the three types of emergencies: national emergency, state emergency, financial emergency. Even during the emergencies can be declared only with the written approval of the cabinet. And finally, passing an ordinance. What is an ordinance? Ordinance is a temporary law passed by the president when the parliament is not in session. Even the ordinance can be passed by the president only on the advice of the cabinet headed by the Prime Minister, and later on it has to get the approval of the Parliament. Now, if we see what are the qualifications required for our president, first, he has to be a citizen of India. He should have completed 35 years of age. He should not hold any office of profit. And finally, he should be qualified for election as a member of the Lok Sabha. Now, what I want you to do is, on a new perforated sheet, please write down the name of the topic, the president and the vice president. Then caption it as president. Write down activity recall, and please copy all the elements given on this slide. Once you are done with the documentation, spend about 3 minutes in completing your work, and then let's proceed. Let us look at the election of the president or the electoral college. Now, if you have good recall skills, we have already looked at this in the 9th standard when we were doing the topic elections, and in that we studied direct and indirect elections. So, if you recollect, election of the president is an example of indirect elections. That's absolutely correct. So, let us look at the electoral college and let us revise. It comprises of the elected members of the Lok Sabha, elected members of Rajya Sabha, elected members of the State Legislative Assembly, including Union Territory of Delhi and Union Territory of Pondicherry. Now, out here you have to remember that nominated members of either house of the parliament and the state legislative assemblies, they are not eligible and they are not included in the electoral college. A presidential candidate has to be proposed by 50 members of this electoral college and has to be seconded by other 50 members of the electoral college. Now, out here you just have to remember this. We are not zooming into the details. The election of the president is held how? In what manner? Through the system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. And this entire voting is done by secret ballot. And in case there is any dispute over the election of the president, then it is decided by the Supreme Court of India. What are the reasons for indirect elections through the electoral college? The first thing is, if the president was to be elected directly by the people, he would become a rival center of power to the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Let us try and understand this. direct election, the person should have real powers. But according to our parliamentary system, the president is a nominal head and the prime minister is the real head. Now, if the president was to be directly elected, means we would have to give him real powers. But then that would be a clash of interest between the prime minister and the president. Yeah, so if we give the president real powers and the prime minister real powers, if both are directly elected, then there is going to be a clash of power, a power struggle, and this is not good. Therefore, they decided that there would be indirect elections. Second is, the president is elected by an electoral college, as this gives a clear voice to the states as well. Why? Because if we see, the electoral college comprises of the elected members of the Lok Sabha, elected members of the Rajya Sabha, and the elected members of the state legislative assemblies. Now out here, in the Rajya Sabha, you have representation of the states. In the state legislative assemblies, you have the voice of the state. And therefore, for such an important portfolio, the president is elected by an electoral college, so that even the states feel that they are participating in the election. So ours is a federal system where there is division of power between the center and the states, and this is what highlights this federal setup also. And finally, the membership in the two houses of the parliament is likely to be dominated by one party. Therefore, if we were only to look at elections of the president merely by a majority of members in the parliament, then it would make him a nominee of the ruling party like the prime minister. And then he would not be able to represent the states of the union as a whole. And therefore, our constitutional framers felt that the election of the president should take place indirectly through the electoral college. Let us look at other key aspects about the President of India. Let us first start with oath of office. Before entering upon his office, the President takes an oath in the presence of the Chief Justice of India. What does he promise in this oath of office? The President promises that he will discharge the functions, he will preserve, protect, defend the Constitution, and devote himself to the service and the well-being of the people of India. If we look at the term of office, the tenure or the duration, the President holds office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters his office. But he shall continue to hold his office even though the expiry of his term might have taken place until his successor takes charge. Finally, we come down to vacation of office. Now, when does the office become vacant? On account of death, resignation, or removal. Now, let us look at resignation. The President may submit his resignation letter to the Vice President, who then passes it on to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And the third thing is, we said removal from office. Now, this procedure is called as impeachment. Now, if the President has violated the spirit of the Constitution, then he can be removed from office. And what is that procedure called as? Impeachment. So let us now zoom in on the procedure for the impeachment of the President. When can the President be impeached? If he has violated the spirit of the Constitution. And in which house of the Parliament can the impeachment procedure start? Both the houses of the Parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, have equal powers. That means that the impeachment procedure can start in any house of the Parliament. Any house of the Parliament can level the charge against the President. Now, the procedure is very simple. Please do not overcomplicate the things. How how does the impeachment procedure start? So first, there is a resolution that is made for the impeachment of the president. This resolution is moved only after it is signed by 1/4 of the total membership of the House. And a 14 days time period is given to the president. Now out here, let us take the example that it has started, the impeachment procedure has started in the Rajya Sabha. That means the resolution can move only after 1/4 of the total members of the Rajya Sabha sign on that resolution. And a 14 days notice is given to the president. What happens next? This resolution is discussed and is put to vote. So out here it is discussed in the Rajya Sabha, it is put to vote, and if at all it gets 2/3 of the total membership of the House's approval, then what happens? This resolution is passed. What happens next? The charge is then referred to the other house, and the other house starts the investigation procedure. Now, the president has the right to appear during this investigation. After the investigation starts off, the resolution is discussed and is put to vote in the next house of the parliament. So now, from the Rajya Sabha, it has moved on to the Lok Sabha. The investigation procedure begins. The president can appear in the investigation and the resolution is put to vote. Now, once again, if it gets a majority of 2/3 of the total membership of the Lok Sabha, then the resolution is passed and the charge has been sustained and the president is impeached. So, step 1, resolution starts and is moved after it is signed by 1/4 of the total membership of the House. The resolution is put to vote. If 2/3 of the members agree, then the resolution is passed. It moves on to the next house. The next house starts the investigation. The president can appear during the investigation. The resolution is put to vote. Once again, if it gets 2/3 majority vote, then the resolution is passed. And what is that term called? It is called that the charge has been sustained. That means the president is now impeached. I am sure you want to know what happens if at all the resolution is moved in one house of the parliament and the discussion starts off, but if it does not get 2/3 majority, then what happens? Then the resolution stops there itself. It does not move on to the other house. Let us look at the second scenario. What if the resolution is moved and the resolution is passed by 2/3 majority in the first house of the parliament, but in the second house, when the investigation for the resolution starts off, if it does not get 2/3 of the total membership of the house's approval, then what happens? Then once again the resolution stops, the charge is not sustained, and therefore it does not remove the president from his office. That means the impeachment procedure started, but it did not reach the finish line. Let us look at some of the functions, some of the powers of the president. In today's session, we will just look at the executive, legislative and financial functions. There are going to be a few points that might sound familiar because you've already seen the functions of the Prime Minister, the functions of the cabinet, and you have seen that they do all the work, but on paper we say that it is done by the president. So let us start off looking at the executive powers and functions of the president. The first thing is that he is the head of the union administration and all the executive orders are issued in the name of the president. All the union officials are his subordinates. All the appointments of the officials, so whether it is the Prime Minister or the Council of Ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice, judges of Supreme Court, High Court, governors of the state, Attorney General of India, all these appointments are made by the President. Next, he has control over the state government. Now, in case there is a state emergency that has been declared, that means President's rule has been imposed. In such a scenario, then the union government has control over the states. And finally, when we are looking at his executive powers, the union territories and border areas are also the responsibility of the President. That means the administration of those union territories, the administration of the bordering areas is also, the border areas is also the responsibility of the President. Let us move on to the legislative powers of the President. The first thing is he addresses the session of the Parliament. It could be during the first session after the general elections to the Lok Sabha, or at the start of the first session each year, or whenever he feels like. Now, in this address, he lays emphasis on the internal external policies of the government. Next, he can send messages to the Parliament, reminding them about any pending bill or any other matter. Generally, the maximum gap allowed between two parliamentary sessions is not more than 6 months. So, what does the President do? He has the power to summon the Parliament. He also has the power to prorogue the houses. Now, what does prorogue houses mean? Totally close the houses. Now, try and understand this. If the entire session is too noisy, chaotic, the members are not behaving, then the presiding officer, that is the Speaker for the Lok Sabha and the Chairman for the Rajya Sabha, can adjourn the house. That is, they can say after half an hour or after 1 hour, we are going to resume the session. So, adjourning the house. And out here, what am I saying? Prorogue the house. That means totally the house is closed, the sessions are done. Now, that power is in the hands of the President. He can also dissolve the Lok Sabha and order for fresh elections. He nominates members, 12 members to the Rajya Sabha from the different fields of arts, science, social service, and 2 members in the Lok Sabha from the Anglo-Indian community if he feels that they are not adequately represented. He also gives assent to bills. Now, no bill can become a law without the assent and signature of the President. That is, without his approval, without his signature, no bill can become a law. Now, once the bill is passed by both the houses of the Parliament, it is sent to the President for his approval. Now, what can the President do? He may give his assent, or he may withhold the bill or send it back with certain recommendations. But out here also, the President has limited veto power. Now, why am I saying he has limited powers? If the bill is passed again in the same form and his recommendations are not looked upon, then he has to give his assent to the bill. Usually the houses do examine the recommendations of the President. Then he also gives assent to some of the state bills. So the governor of a state may reserve certain bills, and that is kept for the consideration of the President. If we are seeing any formation of new states, then a bill for the formation of the new states or alteration of areas of the existing states, that cannot be introduced except on the President's recommendation. And finally, the biggest legislative power in the hands of the President is promulgate the ordinance or pass the ordinance. Now, we've already seen what is an ordinance. It is a temporary law passed by the President when the Parliament is not in session. Now, we have already seen that once again, this is only after he gets a written approval by the cabinet headed by the Prime Minister. But when can he pass this ordinance? So he has to be satisfied that the circumstances make it necessary for him to take immediate action. The houses are not in session and the decision has to be taken. Now once again, why is there a limitation to this? Because if the Parliament, once it resumes, does not approve the ordinance, then it lapses, it stops. And if the ordinance is not disapproved, then what will happen? It will automatically cease to operate at the end of 6 weeks from the date the Parliament reassembles. That means one option is the Parliament does not approve the ordinance and the ordinance stops. But if it has not disapproved it, then what happens? Once the Parliament reassembles, within 6 weeks, it has to get some kind of approval. If nothing is done, then it automatically ceases to operate at the end of those 6 weeks from the date the Parliament reassembles. And if the ordinance lapses, then it is replaced by an act of the Parliament. Let us move on to the last thing, that is financial powers or financial functions, financial duties of the President. We have already seen this, that a money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. Yeah? But this money bill can be introduced only on the recommendation of the President. Next, the annual budget that contains the estimate of income and expenditure for the financial year, that is placed by the Finance Ministry on behalf of the President in the Parliament. The third financial power is the annual financial statement. Now don't get confused between the annual budget and annual financial statement. What is the annual financial statement? It is a report that lists the revenue expenditure done. Yeah. So that also is put before the Parliament at the beginning of every financial year on behalf of the President. After every 5 years, the President appoints a Finance Commission, and finally, he is authorized to withdraw money from the contingency fund of India to meet unforeseen expenditure. Now, there is something called as consolidated fund, and there is something called as contingency fund of India. Now, contingency fund is emergency fund. So, if I ask you who is authorized to withdraw money from the contingency fund, it is the President. And when can the President touch the contingency fund? To meet any unforeseen expenditure during any type of emergency, money is taken out from this emergency fund that is called as the contingency. How will you remember? You will open a tin and take out something during emergency. So contingency fund. So all these are the functions, the executive functions, the legislative functions, the financial functions of the President. We will look at other functions of the President. For the time being, we are done. I request you to write down activity mind map. Below that, write down overview of the financial, executive, legislative functions of the President. Once again, the rule remains the same for the mind map. The links have to be connected. You can be as creative as you want. If you are taking legislative powers, use one color and spread out, branch out, so that it's easier for you to learn. Complete the documentation activity and we will meet soon. Bye. Thank you.